Hello, my name's Ian McNeish, and really the question is, why or how did I get into writing, and what's writing to me? I suppose writing in the very early days was a very mechanical thing for me, because I was brought up in a time when there were no computers and where writing was important. And how did my life develop into writing? Well, I was always reading. There was always books about the house, and as I developed, I enjoyed the whole process of just writing and reading. And I didn't write a lot. I tried my best, but what I was writing most of the time was just notes to my friends. And one of my earlier memories is actually writing a play for puppets when I was probably about 12. Because some of the guys had puppets, and then beyond that it was just developing. A lot of the writing I did afterwards was usually in the work environment, because I happened to be in a particular, or several jobs that involved writing reports, different types of reports, but it was all about the skill of writing, concentrating and trying to get the words correct, and yeah, so that was what drew me into it in the first place. One of the things I did in my early day, and if I pick something up for a moment, it was hardly a hobby, but it's an interest I had. I would go and I would buy postcards, postcards. Not because I was a postcard collector. What fascinated me about the postcards was I could look at the picture, and that picture there, which is called the Glencoe, and it's a boat that used to sail up and down the west coast. I would then research what was in the picture, and I would write a story about it. In this particular one, it's an old farmhouse where a famous Scottish general was born. That led me into researching and writing about him. So that's where writing was grabbing hold of me. When I was working in the police service, obviously in the police service there's lots of writing, because a lot of what you do is based on reporting to court or various other reports. And I was asked one day, the Scottish Government were putting cassettes, in the days of cassette recorders, in all the new cars that came out that August, and they were putting crime prevention advice in, and road safety advice. And they asked me, and I had an afternoon to do this, could I come up with the crime prevention message? And I wrote a play, and I wrote it that afternoon, and that's testament to the fact that I'd spent a lot of my years writing, and I was able then to articulate my message through the words of others in a play, and it appeared on a particular tape, which it was in all the cars in the late 90s, that would be. So, and I read a lot. I read science books, The Neglected Son, for instance. I read lots of poetry books, Norman MacCaig being a favourite, and more. I read political books. Then I did a blog about mountaineering and about some other stuff, maybe politics, hardly politics in my part, but maybe things that got me grumpy. I would write about them. And about 3.5 years ago, along came Extremis Publishing, and they specifically asked me to write a book about A, my mountaineering exploits, and B, my career in the police service. That then was the big challenge for me, because while I played about with writing and I wrote stuff maybe 1,000 words, 2,000 words less, and I'd done it for years, I had no idea where to start in a book. How do you write 70,000 words or more, and keep it A, interesting, and B, also try and create a flow and put a heart in it, and that's what I found hugely challenging. But I slowly produced my very first book for Tom, for Extremis Publishing and Tom, and it's called The Fern Bobby, and he asked me for about 70,000 words perhaps, and when I reached 70,000 words I was only halfway through my career, and I realised I did talk a lot, and so I continued, and after 140,000 words I drew the kind of the blanket over it, and that was what my first book was about. There was a lot of studying involved. I went to archives. I don't know really, I just found the exercise in the beginning very, very difficult. What drove me on? Well, what drove me on was probably two things, but the main thing was I'd said I would do this for somebody, and that's important. You know, if you make a promise, you really need to go through with it. So, which doesn't sound very arty. It doesn't sound as if I was born to do this kind of thing, that it was in my bucket list, because it was never in my bucket list. But having taken on the challenge, then I tried to make the best fist of it I could, and I produced a book which is now out, gets good reviews, and I think, my goodness, and if nobody else ever reads it, at least my family can read it one day, and that in itself's quite an important, element to it. Now I've done two books. The other one is in the system. I've written the words. I've started the words of a third book, and at the age of 70, well, I'm 73 now, but at the age of 70, when this opportunity arose, I suddenly awoke into a new life, and I find it exciting. I find it lots of things. It just drives me on. I think my gravestone will say something like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm not finished. Or it might say, I think the Mark Twain quote, which I won't get correct, but I would like to live my life in a way that even the Undertaker will be sorry when I go. And so while I've not given you an awful lot about the actual books I've written, I've tried to tell you what writing is to me and what I get out of it now, slightly different focus from previous life. And I look forward to every day now. I look forward to the next challenge, the next thing I'm going to write. Where am I going to take the next story? They're all non-fiction at the moment, but perhaps there's a fiction book in my head somewhere. So that's a kind of rough run through of writing to me. So that's where I am, and that's what I do, and I love every minute of it. And if any of you ever want to read my books, then I hope you do, and I hope you enjoy them. Thank you very much.